Okay, let's see if we are on. Everything is right. We're coming on very late. Sorry, it just can't be helped. We're getting lots of feedback right now from um, what is going on with the Beto O'Rourke, Candace Owens, this whole thing with the military. Um, I, I just can't even tell you. It's all coming together. It's been coming together. Um, it's just military. It seems like it's so complicated, but it's starting to get very clear, very clear. And I said it a couple nights ago that this is about election tampering. That's really when you just screen off everything else. My goodness. It just is election tampering. Election tampering. So that's what we're going to talk about today with the Candace Owens, what's going on with Candace Owens and Mitch Snow, and the reports and the alibis, and of course with Beto O'Rourke and Danae Katzen. Um, Going back in time, that's really the very beginning of all of this, right? Is Danae Katzen and all her connections, her inserting herself into Richard's case, um, really very, very early on, having his credit cards after his death. So let's get started. This is day 1,978 days. I believe that's where we're at. Yeah, 1,978 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room and taken to the basement room in that same building, the arms room, and his life was taken from him. And then his body was taken off of Fort Bliss, and he was trafficked. His body was trafficked to Mexico. We believe a huge possibility because we have the information that he was dismembered. So now, with more and more information, we believe that possible organ harvesting, because Martha Mendez Aguilar is very in the mix of this of our son's case, and we're very grateful for uh, Tulsi Gabbard from DNI, and President Trump for having um, Martha Mendez Aguilar arrested. She is known to be the she devil, and uh, her mode of operation was to train, or not even train, but just to get like 16, 17-year-old girls to do illegal C-sections while they promised young young women that were in crisis pregnancy jobs and things like that. So they targeted these young women in crisis pregnancies, and then they would force them into these illegal, very dangerous C-sections. If the child lived through it, it was a miracle, and they would then sell the babies to they targeted the homosexual market in the United States community with these babies, and the mothers, they had nothing to say, because after their baby was stripped from their body, they would take their organs, and they would no longer be alive. They would no longer be alive. Just a horrible, horrible thing. And the really horrible thing about this whole thing is that Martha Mendez Aguilar, the she devil, La Diabla, her family worked for Beto O'Rourke. Her family worked for Beto O'Rourke. And there's so much more in this, and think about this. Soros was funding Beto O'Rourke's campaign, right? He was part of that, which is the foreign influence of this whole thing. Um, but Beto O'Rourke was very supported by Danae Katzen and by Justin Underwood's wife. If you don't know who Justin Underwood is, well, uh, he tampered with evidence, and Felix Valenzuela submitted that into court, the tampered evidence uh, to push a false narrative on the Walmart mass shooting, to tamper with the election. So this is political. This is about Beto O'Rourke. This is about his campaign. This is about his opposition, which was President Trump. And this is the blood sport of politics. And what was going on with Beto O'Rourke and down in El Paso on the border looks like child play compared to what Waltz was doing, what Governor Waltz was doing. And of course, those two were friends. But Waltz, terrible billions of dollars of fraud, right? Fraud. But there were no children there at the daycares, right? There were no children there. But down at the border, there were children. There were children. There were illegal C-sections. There was um, organ harvesting. There was the most despicable crimes the way they did it down at the border. Um, and I don't want to make any excuses for Governor Waltz. What the billions of dollars in fraud from the Somalis, from taking advantage of Medicare with the fraud of the autism fraud through the Medicare, the daycare fraud, just fraud after fraud after fraud, right? And then taking that money, skimming off for those that did the fraud, but then also using that money to fund candidates. It became very political. You're fraudulently putting together millions and billions of dollars, and then you're sending a big hunk of that money to, like, Washington State to fund a candidate that. And why would they do? Why do they want to fund the candidates? Why do they want to have the presidency or the Senate seat or the congressional seat? They want to control the law enforcement. They want to control the judicial appointments. The prosecuting appointments, the AG. That's why Soros was involved. Remember, it's already documented that Soros wanted to control the prosecutors, the attorney generals, the AUSAs. They wanted to control the prosecutors so that they could carry on their criminal schemes with impunity without having to worry. If they had, the Connell Wentons in their pocket, if they had the Connell Wentons in the FBI or the CIA people, or and in the pocket, that would cover up for them uh, when someone would ask them about their criminal activity. When you had someone like Richard um, say, wait a minute, they're doing criminal trafficking. Fort Bliss is involved in the Walmart mass shooting. And then you have the Connell Wenton that leaks Richard's identity to the cartel and putting a target on Richard. And it was immediate. It was immediate retaliation, and that led to his brutal murder, and then the stealing of his body, and the desecration of his body, and um, the recycling of his body, right? Um, that's why we have those 3 autopsy numbers. Um, it's just clear that they were, you know, really had control there in El Paso of the agencies, of the law enforcement, of the judicial, um, of the police, you saw that with Director Sanchez, Jose Sanchez, with the honeypot, right? The honeypot controlling him. He's the top cop there. He's compromised. And then let's look at the military. From the very get-go, I've been saying that the generals were compromised. So that means that the Senate Arms Committee is compromised, um, because they're the ones that give the stars to our generals. So Trump is in a real situation here where he's just surrounded by like individuals that mutiny is their middle name, right? Mutiny is their middle name. And you can see that even with that, he's just been magnificent and getting these arrests. If it wasn't for President Trump, La Diabla would be continuing to do what she was doing, which was absolutely atrocious and horrendous. And so she's been absolutely arrested. And of course, Jeffrey Epstein, during his first administration, was arrested, right? They really hated him for that. And they had 4 years to release all the information. They never did. They never talked about it. They never cried about it. Uh, you know, but they didn't say that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested under President Trump's watch. So was El Chapo. Well, El Chapo was extradited under his watch and was sentenced to life imprisonment for um, for this border trafficking, narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, you name it, weapons trafficking, and anything that wasn't bolted down on these bases were trafficked. And so Intel and the special forces community have reached out. They're very sick and tired of all of this. And what we have learned and corroborated through other sources is that Fort Huachuca was like the leading in arms trafficking. And we know that there's tunnels, right? We know through Mitch Snow, even not just Mitch Snow, but we know it through the intel and the special forces community. We know it through other cooperating um, officials, that there are tunnels, right? That there are tunnels. And those tunnels, we know that Fort Huachuca was leading in arms trafficking, arms trafficking. Okay, we know TRADOC is Fort Huachuca. We know that that was involved in our son's case. And we know that there are tunnels, lots of tunnels at Fort Bliss, under Fort Bliss, right beside Fort Bliss, that goes across the border, and that they were, of course, engaged in every kind of trafficking. And y- you know, that trafficking gives them a lot of money, a lot of power. That power then allows them to tamper with the elections. And one of the things that they did was they orchestrated the Walmart mass shooting um, to tamper with the 2020 election. This is very clear to us with 5.5 years, more than 5.5 years now of dive investigating in all of this, very diving very deep in all of this. And um, and I've put out every day videos and hard evidence about the Walmart mass shooting, the Mayellas. That was us who put that out there. The Mayellas, the family of the Walmart shooter, we've put out there everything about Patrick Crucius. We've put all the anomalies out there. We've put out the paperwork for the appointed counsel. That is just such a joke. Shows that they never ever did their due diligence when it came to if taxpayers' money was going to be spent. And now and to compare that, this really triggers something that's been going on in the Charlie Kirk, that they're hoping that that case goes on for a very long time. Well, why do they do that? Well, they get appointed counsel, they get taxpayers' money to pay for this very long trial, very long. So they're wanting to make a lot of money off of it. That's what they're trying to do. These lawyers, these very dirty lawyers. Um, and of course, they're going to try to finagle with it because it has to do with the military. And, my question is right now, because evidence is really lending to this kind of questioning, because it looks very clear that Mitch Snow is being vindicated, that he absolutely revealed the tunnels and he was special forces and the criminal trafficking that was going on at the border there at Fort Huachuca that involved the military with the cartel in cahoots with each other in the trafficking. And that corroborates everything that is in our son's case. What Richard was whistleblowing, that the military was involved in the trafficking, that they absolutely had skin in the game, and that they absolutely were involved in the Walmart mass shooting because of it. Because of it. Because they have to control the election, who is elected, in order to control the prosecutors and the justice system and the law enforcement community. And, that's why they wanted Beto O'Rourke in there. That's why they didn't want President Trump. And that's why they were absolutely didn't want Richard. And that's why they didn't want Charlie Kirk. They were targeting those that were allies to President Trump. And Charlie Kirk was even talking about election interference before his life was taken. And so was Richard. Richard was talking about the election interference with the Walmart mass shooting case because Fort Bliss was involved in it. So, my questions and our family's question is because, of course, we know that Leilani Hart, a prime suspect in our son's case, wrote a paper that Richard was a code red case, right? That this was a military authorized, military participating of the death of our son. And we know that Colin Wetton, the special agent in charge, I should call him just the special agent in charge. I know he is the assistant, but he's been there for so long. He really is the special agent in charge. And I think the special agent in charge right now, it's Jared Brown. Maybe it's different under the Trump administration. I don't know, but he's pretty new. And um, Colin Wetton has been there for so long. He's really the de facto special agent in charge, and he's the one that we have it confirmed, absolutely confirmed, that he's the inside man for the cartel, that he is the FBI inside man for the cartel, and that he was the one that leaked our son's identity to the cartel, putting a target on our son's back. And so, you know, and of course, he is Beto O'Rourke. Okay. And how do I know that? Because there's evidence that shows that he favored Beto O'Rourke. Of course, Colin Wenton's family is from Chihuahua, and they live very good. They live very good. Matter of fact, it's a lot of unexplained wealth around. Okay, there's a lot of unexplained wealth with the Wintons, and that needs to be looked into. And um, so that's the FBI. That's the EPIC, the El Paso intelligence community, absolutely involved in all of this. And you see that because Fort Huachuca is intelligence. Um, I know Fort Huachuca. Um, it's like, oh, God has just put us in these situations. I was born at White Sands Missile Range. I know El Paso. I know Fort Bliss. I used to run Fort Bliss. I used to jog it with my dad. I knew that there were tunnels. And here, and I know Fort Huachuca, and I can't tell you how I know it because I know Fort Huachuca, and I know there's tunnels there, and I know that what Mitch Snow witnessed 35 years ago is absolutely possible, absolutely confirmed now, right? About the tunnels and the military being involved in with the cartel trafficking through the tunnels. And this makes everything very political because we have huge support for our military, but our military leadership has been compromised, and we have generals in there that are up to no good that have been absolutely compromised. And we know that General Kelly went to go work for the governor of Chihuahua, as a foreign agent. Just think about that. It's just really. Um, and we know through our whole son's case that they were so compromised, y'all, and they were covering up, and we have evidence upon evidence upon evidence. That's why I can say it. That's why I can say it on a live stream that our generals were so compromised, and Sean Bernabe is so compromised, and Donna Martin so compromised, and James McConville so compromised, and Clem Coward so compromised, and General Patrick Matlock compromised, and David Stewart compromised, and General Mealy compromised, and Michael Garrett compromised, and it just, and we can say it because we have the receipts. We have the receipts, and we have also report that Richard was a code red case, that this was a military sanctioned hit on our son. Okay. That it was a military and intelligence. Of course, you have to bring in the FBI in this because of Colin Winton, but that this was a military sanctioned hit on our son and a cover up on our son. And so that we know that the evidence is overwhelming for that. There's no doubt in our mind that this was the case. Um, so the question is, was the same thing, can the same thing be applied to Charlie Kirk's case? Was Charlie Kirk's death a military sanctioned code red? That's the question. That is where, that's a question that all the evidence is leading to. Um, and of course, uh, the big common denominator of all of this is this Mormon faction, right? This Mormon faction, and there's more common denominators, but um, you know there you see the organized crime activity. You see that it is political because they need to control things politically, to control the law enforcement so that they can continue to operate their criminal um, schemes, be it organ harvesting, be it drug trafficking, be it weapons trafficking, be it human trafficking or children trafficking, or what else that they do? Supply trafficking, humanitarian aid, body recycling, the whole funeral fraud, everything. You know, the adoption, terrible uh, situation there. In order to do this kind of terrible fraud, they need to control the law enforcement and the judicial, and you know. Uh, so when you look at Minnesota, when you look at what's going on with that fraud, also remember that there's fraud going on at the border that is just um, atrocious, and that it needs addressing. And I will tell you this: that there's been a lot of going on at the border. I don't see Colin Wetton yet in handcuffs. But I think it's getting there. I think that everything is being exposed, and it has to be exposed one step at a time, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that's how this country really, the way the cogs turn is by the people, for the people, of the people. And that's why, you know, President Trump is revealing every day, revealing more and more about the operations, because Americans don't want to hear that our generals are engaged with the military. The Mexican cartel, they don't want to hear that, right? With their crony friends, right? Or veteran friends or whatever. They don't want to hear that they are engaged with the cartel in this kind of tunnel trafficking and everything. And so it's heartbroken. It's really heartbreaking. You need to, release it gently, and step by step explaining it to the people, like Richard was doing in Richard's case. Um, saying things are very bad, and they're very bad because they will orchestrate a Walmart mass shooting with gunshots in the mall, with the individuals in the mall that are dressed in black that have M4s. And where do those M4s come from? They come from Fort Bliss. They come from Fort Bliss, and now we have this flight from El Paso, or from Fort Huachuca to El Paso to Andrew, and there was no need to stop in El Paso with this plane. Um, there was no need to do that. There was no, Fort Huachuca is just a hop, skip, and away when it comes to a plane trip. There's no refueling or anything in El Paso. It's just because of the border proximity and them dropping VIP. It's a VI. They had to have a purpose at Fort Bliss, and of course they did, because it's the epicenter for the criminal trafficking. And that was on the day before Charlie Kirk was lost his life. And I think that you really have to ask the question: was the hit on Charlie Kirk a military sanctioned code red? Was it? Um, uh, we know that Richards was. We know that Richards was. And so we would like to know if Charlie Kirk's was, because this whole meeting, that's why I think they're freaking out. They're totally freaking out, because it puts the military into um with the Mormon faction, which we know that they are into Charlie Kirk's case. And before then, really, the military wasn't there. But I think the military is the missing link in Charlie Kirk's case, uh, because Charlie Kirk was wanting to get to the bottom of all of this election tampering. That was that was part of it. He was absolutely an ally of President Trump. Um, and the infiltration already into TPUSA was very clear, and they have a very close relationship with the military contracts. You see that through Erica Kirk's mother, and they're worth a lot of money, these contracts. So uh, yeah, it puts the military into Charlie Kirk's case, and not in a good way, and not in a good way. So um, absolutely compromised. And we know that Fort Bliss is compromised, and we know that Fort Huachuca is compromised. We know that because it was part of Tradoc was part of our son's case in a very bad way, weaponizing Tradoc against us. Um, and we've laid out all of the evidence for that. We're not crazy. We have the receipts. We have absolutely laid out how Tradoc was used against us, and yeah, if they can use it against Richard, if they can use it against President Trump, which they did, would they use it against Charlie Kirk? And we believe that that needs to be asked. That needs to be really asked. So thank you, Laura, for coming on. Thank you, Christina. So sorry what you are going through. Praying for the veil to lift and uncover all of this horrific cover up. Thank you so much. And it has been lifted, and now it's connected to the Charlie Kirk case. Because what connects it is this trafficking. What connects it is the military involved with the cartel, with the tunnels, trafficking, and that when you have an individual like Charlie Kirk that doesn't want anything to do with that, from our uh, knowledge of him, he didn't want anything to do with that, and he didn't want anything to. He didn't want the election interference, right? And neither did Richard. He didn't want anything to do with the trafficking, and then they were both silenced. It sounds like we've got the motive, right? We got the motive, and we got the why, and we need the who. I mean, I believe that the question really needs to stand if the military was involved um, in this attack on President Trump's allies, right? We know that in our son's case, it absolutely was. So, and I think that question is a very strong one for Charlie Kirk's case as well. Slowly but surely, everything will be exposed. Keep up the good fight. Thank you so much. God bless you, and Anicia too. Your prayers and your love, and all your hopes and wishes, because we absolutely need to have a dependable military, and we need to have dependable military generals. We cannot have Sean Bernabes in there. We cannot have Donna Martins in there, or McConvilles, um, or Matlocks, or Clem Cowards. We need to have dependable, good generals for our military, and um, this is what's being exposed, and I think that that needs to be exposed, and I think maybe that's why Alex Jones and Harrison. I was listening to Harrison. Uh, he's one of the workers on Infowars, one of the reporters on Infowars, and we were listening to him talk with Candace Owens today, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Candace, you're so nice. You are so nice to him. I would just cut him off, because he just said the same thing over and over again. He had an agenda. He had an agenda, and maybe that's what she was giving time for it to be exposed. That no matter what you said to him, no matter what that his job is to ask questions. He didn't want to ask questions. He didn't want to ask questions. He didn't want to get to the bottom of it. He didn't want to be honest. He didn't want to be authentic. And she absolutely comes across. I don't know her personally, but she comes across as wanting to get to the bottom of this, and she wants to be authentic about it. And she had a lot of patience for this Harrison guy. I mean, she had so much patience for him. I just couldn't believe what he was saying. It was absolutely crazy. And Mitch, uh, Mitch Snow, um, he absolutely revealed these tunnels and the military involvement with cartels in these tunnels. Everybody should be really wanting the answers to that, right? Just like we want the answers to this Somali fraud in Minnesota. We want answers. And, why are they so mad at him? Because the military are involved, right? That's why the military are involved. And in our son's case, they were so mad at us because I said the military are involved. They're involved in this cover up, and we have been absolutely trained to, and of course, us, we're go army, right? Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I mean, my husband has 30 years, and I did everything for the military, for the deployed, and all the care boxes and everything like that, getting down on my knees and praying for all the deployed. And, I was a clown to entertain the children when we had deployments come back home, and so that the parents could have a nice picnic together, a nice barbecue together, and I would do little magic tricks and stuff like that for the kids. So, I mean, we're just totally supportive of the military, but let me tell you, the military leadership has been compromised, and they're mutant. They're mutinous. They're absolutely mutinous, and the way that President Trump has handled this as commander in chief, um, I just can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine. Maybe he did what Columbus did and have two logs, right? Two journals, playing with two hands, with two card hands. He has had to deal with this mutinous military leadership. And I'm not talking about the grunt, right? I'm not talking about the regular foot soldier or the regular airman or the regular Navy. I'm talking about these four-star generals, three-star generals, the Sean Bernabes, the Donna Martins, the McConvilles, and they're absolutely on the take. They're absolutely on the take with whatever contracts, and because it's the only thing that explains it. It's the only thing that explains their betrayal, their treason, their absolutely mutinous and traitorous actions, that they would be involved in the Walmart mass shooting, right? And why would they do that? Because that Walmart mass shooting had um, political agendas. They wanted to do weapons control, right? They wanted to put in some kind of ban on weapons, and they wanted to create this false narrative and blame and connect it to President Trump falsely. And why did they want to do that? To smear him, to label him as some kind of uh, with a smear name like this white supremacist thing, which was false, right? And we know that because Patrick Crucius's family was right there in El Paso. This was not random. This was not white supremacist. He says we have him on audio. We have him on video where he's not a white supremacist. We have his lawyer on there. I mean, they were just framing everything, and then you had the likes of Felix Valenzuela and Justin Underwood, pushing this narrative too. And you had Beto O'Rourke going to the hospital pushing this narrative, with Ernest Christopher Grant, and then you had others that are involved in this, pushing this false narrative. You can absolutely, it's so obvious when you know. It is so obvious when you know. You can just spot them, these bad actors that were like Danae Katzen, that were Beto supporters, and that would take Richard's credit cards, that would contact us and give us false information and mislead us and everything like that. Um, and here she was, totally connected, and the CID covered for her. We were crying for her. We were crying for her, and saying the CID needed to interview her, and then they were like, okay, we'll bring her in, after like a month, and they were just covering for her, and they were just misleading us every which way. They were such bad actors. And finally, we realized who she was, and she's a fugitive, and she's a con woman, and her connections with uh, pedos, really, with the fraud people and people that do the most terrible things to children, and then to be supportive of Beto O'Rourke, who had the La Diabla's family working for him, and living right next to Rafael Arellano Caron's house. Rosa Marie purchased Arellano Caron, the owners of the Plenitude Crematorium, where they were fraudulently giving crushed construction material into urns, and to families that were thinking that those were their loved ones, and charging them for it. And all the while, they have their body in their courtyard, rotting away, rat infested, and they're collecting humanitarian aid for unidentified migrant, or recycling it through the funeral homes that were dealing fraudulently with them, is just crazy. And so Beto works into that, and Beto works into Danae Katzen, and Beto O'Rourke is employing the family of La Diabla. And, it's like, come on, how much do we need to understand that Beto O'Rourke is up to no good? Right. And now you have these flights where it connects Fort Huachuca with El Paso, and it becomes very obvious that you have some very bad actors in the Congress, very bad actors in positions that were um, targeting the allies of President Trump. That's that's what's going on, and I think those questions really need to be asked and studied and investigated. And we are, I think, uh, f- further than so many people, because we're sitting on so much additional evidence, so much additional evidence. And we have the support now of the intel and the special forces community that are sick and tired of playing these games. Maybe they see the golden age coming, a legitimate golden age where they don't have to participate in illegal activity to have a nice life, maybe they see a better way, a legitimate way of having a beautiful life. Um, because I'm not saying that they're all compromised or anything like that. I'm just saying that we know that some of them are. Okay. Because we've been living through it. We've been living through it. We've been, attacked and retaliated against. And there are some bad actors out there. And so we'll see how President Trump and his administration continue to do these incredible, absolutely incredible things. um, to secure our border, to stop this criminal trafficking that have been going on for decades and decades. And think about how many people were hurt because they were trying to see something, say something, and then they were targeted, like Glennon Oakley Jr. and like Richard, and I believe Charlie Kirk, like Charlie Kirk. You know, that question really needs to be investigated, but that's what I'm thinking. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you, and I don't think it's yeah, it's not too late. It's not too late. I think I just want to say I love you. Please share this. I know it's early in the morning, but this stuff is very, very important for our country, and um, and it's worth it. It's worth staying up and doing this. It's worth it for the children, for our future, for our country, for our sons and daughters that volunteer in the military. It's worth it. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.